When did you lose your childhood? That's a big question. And this is the same question Markus Natten asked for himself. Let us discuss the lesson, and today's lesson is a poem written by Markus Natten titled Childhood. Join me in the class. Let us discuss. Welcome back, students. Today I am going to discuss a poem, Childhood, written by Markus Natten. This poem is a question asked when an individual fellow's childhood went away, was gone. This poem talks about the shift of human psyche from innocence to the bitter experiences of life. So we have all encountered this process of human life. Here in the poem, if we see, Markus Natten has started with a question. This question may be your also, maybe mine also. It goes like this: when did my childhood go? We all ask this question. If we have never asked it, when we read it, the same thing crops up into our mind. So look at this. Was it the day I ceased to be 11? We have a differentiation of childhood, adolescent life, adulthood, old age. This kind of differentiation with the age. Look, when a person turns 11, he has entered to another level of life. When you were a kid, a small boy or a girl, you never realized about what is going to come in your future, what you are going to have in your mind in future when you grow up. So the poet says, was it when I turned 11? Was it when I became 11 years old? That time I lost my childhood? Maybe, may not be. He brings up another idea. Was it the time I realized that hell and heaven could not be found in geography and therefore could not be? He says, was it the time I realized heaven and hell cannot be found in geography? That means heaven and hell are not here on the earth. What he says is, if it is not here on the earth, if you cannot find it in the geography, then it cannot exist. So this is a time when he realized that heaven and hell cannot be found in geography. Was it this time when he realized it that he lost his childhood? Maybe, may not be. He is not satisfied with this answer. So he further goes on to ask, when did my childhood go? He said, was it the time I realized that adults were not all they seemed to be? At a point of time in his life, he realized that adults are not what they seem to be. Adults talk about so many things. They talk about love and how to love, but they do not seem to act so lovingly. This is the time that he says maybe he lost his childhood, because all these things talks about experience of human life, and these experiences are really bitter. So they talked of love and preached of love, but did not act so lovingly. Was that the day? So he says, he asked this question. Was it that particular day when I realized that adults do not act how they seem to have acted? But then he is not satisfied with this answer also. He goes on further to ask, when did my childhood go? Was it when I found my mind was really mine? At this point of time, he says, there was a time in his life when he realized that his mind belongs to him. It is his own, to use whichever way I chose. He considered this point of time in his life also when he says the time he really found himself. Found himself means found his mind, that he can think and his thoughts are his own, doesn't belong to anyone else. Was it this time that he lost his childhood? Producing thoughts that were not those of other people but my own and mine alone. He says, the thoughts that is produced within himself is not the thoughts that is produced in other people. It is his own. It belongs to him. He doesn't produce thoughts that belongs to others, or others do not produce thoughts that belongs to him. So that's why he says that was this the time, or was this the day particularly when he lost his childhood? He is asking that question. But then he is not satisfied with all these answers. All these answers are associated with the experiences that he has got in his life. So he says, furthermore, he asks the question like this: where did my childhood go? It went to some forgotten place that's hidden in an infant's face. That's all I know. Then he found the answer. What's the answer? That it might have gone to some forgotten place. And what is that forgotten place? his own childhood that he has left long ago. There he can find the answer, because childhood is all about innocence. And now what you see is, at this point of time in his life, he is filled with experiences of life, bitter experiences of life. And that's why he says, the fact that childhood is gone can be found in an infant's face. And that's all that he knows. He can't exactly find out where his childhood has gone. He can't exactly tell us where really his childhood is gone. So the explanation is the shift of mind from innocence to experience. As we grow up, we leave behind our childhood and we move towards experiences in life. And this experience troubles us so much in our life because we are filled with bitter experiences of life. So this poem is all about a shift. Again and again I'm saying this is about a shift of human psyche from innocence to experience. I hope you have understood this, and with this I would like to close this discussion. Hey, wait a minute. Now let us talk on the technicalities of this poem. By genre, this poem, Childhood, is a lyric poem. The subjective perspective of the poem makes it a lyric poem. Talking about the themes of this poem, besides the theme of childhood, Markus Natten has come up with two other contrasting themes in the poem. They are the theme of hypocrisy and egotism. The poet specifically focuses on adults' hypocritical behavior with their children. When a child matures, he no more experiences the same kind of love he received during his childhood. Here, Markus Natten talks about the psychological change in an individual in the process of growing up. Children remain less concerned about themselves, but as they mature, their minds jump into action and produce thoughts that belong to them. Here, ego plays another role in human life. The poet actually feels rejuvenated with the thought of childhood, but becomes sad at the face of the monotony of matured life. Now, talking about the structure of the poem, this poem, Childhood by Markus Natten, contains 4 stanzas. The first 3 stanzas have 6 lines in each, while the last one has only 4 lines. It doesn't maintain a regular rhyme scheme. So let's look at the text. Leaving aside the refrain that appears in stanza 1, 2, and 3. In the first stanza, 2nd and 3rd lines and 4th and 5th lines respectively rhyme together. Both in the 2nd and 3rd stanzas, only 2 lines rhyme together in each stanza, whereas in the 4th stanza, A, B, B, A rhyming format is used. Sound and meter or metrical scheme is another aspect of poetic technique, but I'm not going to talk about this topic here because it has nothing to do with your exams. Now we will look into one of the most important aspects of poetry, that is poetic device or literary device. Okay, so we are going to look into what literary devices can be found in this particular poem, Childhood by Markus Natten. The first thing that we come across here is personification. Personification is a literary device. It is the process of attaching human qualities to non-human entities. So here we find he is personifying childhood. He thinks that childhood has gone somewhere to an unknown place. Okay? So the next device that he has used here is repetition. Repetition means refrain. The refrain means, suppose a line gets repeated in different stanzas of the same poem. Okay, the same line gets repeated again and again in different stanzas of the poem. So that kind of repetition of lines is called repetition or refrain. So here we find 2 lines. When did my childhood go? And another is, was that the day? So these 2 lines gets repeated again and again in the poem. Okay, then the next thing is interrogation or rhetorical question. Rhetorical question is another device used here in this poem, and the poet incorporates it many times. So the same line, when did my childhood go? Was that the day? these are the rhetorical questions or interrogation, questioning on a particular idea. Alright, so this is one here. And then now let's talk about metaphor. Metaphor is a literary device that directly refers to one thing by mentioning another, having similar hidden ideas or characteristics between them. Basically what you will find, the poet has compared machines with producing thoughts metaphorically. Okay, so that's how mind is compared to a machine when he is using the word producing thoughts. So that's a metaphor for human mind. Okay, then next one is antithesis. Antithesis is a rhetorical device in which two different and opposite ideas are put together in a sentence to achieve a contrasting effect. Okay, here we have one which is hell and heaven. We know heaven is different and hell is different. Whether they exist or not is not our question here. What we can find is heaven can be compared to childhood as it is concerned with peace and happiness, while hell is a contrasting element to it, which can be related to the other themes of the poem, like hypocrisy and egotism that bring human sadness and pain. Okay, so the last thing I would like to talk here in this poem is alliteration. This is another important device that is used in the poem. Okay, so alliteration means when two adjacent words in the same line starts with the same letter. Suppose my mind, whichever way, that the, etc. So they are all starting with the same letter in the beginning of the word. So that's how when 2-3 different words starting with same letter in the beginning. Okay, this is called alliteration, and alliteration actually adds color to the musicality of the lyric poem. So that's important. All right, and I think with this I'm going to close this discussion, and I hope you have understood the discussion of the poem as well as discussion on the technicalities of this particular poem. Okay, thank you for watching.